Okay, class. So today we're going to talk about Chapter 6, Coding, in the step-by-step book. Everybody got their step-by-step book? I'll get you some lotion in a minute. Okay, so I'm going to erase everything that's on this board. So sorry, Miss Shackelford. Now, I think I talked about in my other tutoring class about how to judge codes when you're looking for certain codes. So if you have your CPT books, if you have your ICD-10 books, that's what we're going to need today. So I'm going to go and pull those out. Everybody have theirs, or you want to come borrow some?
We don't got those.
You ain't got those? Y'all ain't got those? Okay.
Man, y'all so
It's very okay. It's very okay. All right, so I'm going to borrow Julietta's. And I think y'all going to have to team up. Let's see here. Nope, not this one. Okay. And
that chapter 6.
this one. And this one. Okay.
Does chapter 6 talk about the digestive system?
Yes. Should be talking about that. What do y'all have in y'all chapter 6? Yeah. Yes, okay. All right. Let me give you this CPT book, and you and I will share an ICD-10 book. Okay? Okay, great. So, let's look at this. Does this write the way I need it to? Okay, great. Does this write the way I need it to? Nope, not exactly. Does this write the way I need it to? Yep, maybe. And does this write the way I need it to? Yes. Okay. All right. We're going to be writing in style. Okay. So let's look at chapter 6 and fix my hair. It's raining today. Miss Harper had to do a quick fix. Okay. So let me look at this. Okay. And I'm tape recording this so that when you all want an opportunity to look at this, refresh your mind, refresh your memory on how and what we went over, you all can look at this again on my YouTube channel, THCOD, Tara's Healthcare Consulting and Office Design. Okay, so let me look at your chapter 6. Can I share your book? Well, look at that. All right. So, chapter 6. Chapter 6. Okay. Okay, so chapter 6 is talking about chapter-specific coding guidelines. And this is chapter-specific coding guidelines for the ICD-10-CM, which is chapters 11 through 14, okay? So we're going to examine the digestive system, review the coding and subcutaneous tissue diseases, and understand diseases of the musculoskeletal system and connective tissue coding, okay? So first things first, we're going to turn to the page and we're going to discuss diseases of the digestive system. So for those who have already had medical terminology, you should be pretty much familiar with medical terminology as far as what gastro means, what colo means, enter means for the intestines, different things like that that deals with the intestinal system. As far as anatomy physiology, anatomy-wise, you should already be familiar with the esophagus, the stomach, which is the fundus. The fundus is located inside your stomach right here. Let me stand up and show you. And so right up under in the middle is your fundus, okay, which is the body of your stomach. And the apex of the heart sits right on top of the stomach, which is the mouth of the esophagus that goes into the stomach. And that's why when people eat fast, remember we talked about that once before, when folks eat fast or eat on the go, and you tend to stretch that sphincter whenever it enters into your stomach. Once you stretch it, and over a period of time, years, if it doesn't snap back correctly, then what you call is hiatal hernia. Okay, and the apex of the heart sits right on the opening of the esophagus where that goes. So that's why when you swallow real fast, you go, ooh, ooh, I felt that, you know, and the doctor has to go in and kind of tighten that up so that you can not have any GERD or acid reflux like you usually have as a sign and symptom of burning or heartburn. Okay, and your stomach normally is supposed to be the size of your fist. Okay, size of your fist. So normally bariatric patients, and I can say that because I'm a 2-time bariatric patient, our stomachs tend to be stretched 2 times the size over years. So that's why bariatrically, when they go in to cut your stomach, they cut 75 to 80% of your stomach, so your stomach is big like this. Okay, so you don't really eat a whole lot. You eat enough to sustain you, and then depending on what foods that you eat, they're considered to be slider foods. Okay, slider foods are like your mashed potatoes, your rice, anything that slides and high caloric. Those things can easily go in and still cause you to gain weight. If you're eating roughage, such as salad, broccoli, cabbage, things of that nature, it is supposed to fill you up. And the vagus nerve in your head is supposed to say, I'm full. That's enough. If I keep eating, I'm going to get an unwanted picnic, okay, all over the table. You don't want that. Okay, so now let's look at this. The digestive system, chapter 11, disease of the digestive system in the tabular of the 110. So let's go in the ICD book and go get that. And I'm going to show you exactly what they mean by chapter. Okay, so we're going to share this, Latasha. Now, there's different chapters in your ICD-CM book, okay? Okay, so let's find chapter 11. Hold on. It was not in here, or is it me? Chapter 5, chapter 9, chapter 10, chapter 10, chapter 11. Okay, now, what is this talking about in chapter 6 of your step-by-step book? I'm glad you asked. If you go to your ICD-10 book, this is your ICD-10 book. I'm using 2017. Currently, we're supposed to be using 2018. When November 1st of this year, 2018, come out, we're supposed to be having the 2019 edition as of November 1st, 2018. So be mindful of that. Every November 1st comes a new book of the ICD-10. and the CPT book. Okay. If you go inside your ICD-10 book and go to the red tabular section of your ICD-10 book, you should find, hold on, your official coding guidelines. So let me show you what that looks like. It looks like this, okay? And up here in the corner here, it's going to say your official coding guideline book, okay? And so it goes along with chapter by chapter. So let's go back to the first page if you have it, where your official coding guideline. Do y'all see the first page of your official coding guideline? Okay, so I'm going to share this with you. Okay, so when it talks about chapters. So let's see here. Chapter 1, well, it starts off with chapter 2. So chapter 2, you have neoplasms, okay? And then chapter 3, let's see here, let's go on. Let's see, chapter 3. Where is chapter 3? Oh, you know what? It lists all this already right here. Okay. So chapter 1 talks about certain infectious and parasitic diseases. Okay, certain diseases such as AIDS, HIV, those different things, your parasitic diseases. Then you have chapter 2, which talks about neoplasms. Neoplasms talks about different cancers, or sometimes things that are benign, that are not cancerous, but they form some sort of sarcoma or some sort of tumor, okay? And sometimes it could be in situ, sometimes it could be metastatic. So it's the neoplasm section has its own section by itself. Okay. Now you have chapter 3. Chapter 3 talks about blood and blood forming diseases. This is all in the ICD 10 CM book. Chapter 4 talks about the endocrine. Chapter 5 talks about mental, behavioral, and neurodevelopment disorders. Now, they do have their own ICD book for behavioral health, and it's called something different, and I have to get those acronyms. But they have their own ICD type book for behavioral health. Chapter 6 talks about disease of the nervous system. Chapter 7 talks about diseases of the eye and endexia. Chapter 8 talks about diseases of the ear and the mastoid process. Chapter 9 talks about diseases of the circulatory system. Chapter 10 talks about disease of the respiratory system. Chapter 11 talks about disease of the respiratory system, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Chapter 12 talks about diseases of skin and subcutaneous tissue. Chapter 13 talks about diseases of the musculoskeletal tissue. Chapter 14 talks about diseases of the genitourinary system, which is the reproductive system. Chapter 15 talks about pregnancy. Chapter 16 talks about certain conditions originating in the perinatal period. Chapter 17 talks about congenital malformations. Chapter 18 talks about signs, symptoms, and abnormal clinical laboratory findings. Chapter 19 talks about injury, poisoning, and certain other consequences of external causes. Chapter 20 talks about external causes, dealing with morbidity. Chapter 21 talks about factors of influencing health status and contact with health services. So every chapter in the ICD-10 book has its own systems of the body systems that they deal with and how they're categorized. Why is ICD-10 so important? It is important for statistical reasons. We have to know what disease was found or discovered, what age, what ethnicity, what region of the United States, what region of the world, where in the country. We have to have this to categorize this for statistical reasons for the World Health Organization, who wrote the book, and also for CDC, okay? All right, so let's go here to the tabular list. So we're going to skip the alphabetic. We're going to go moving forward. and chapter 11. So I'm going to show you what chapter 11 looks like in your ICD 10 book. Okay, and I love the fact that they have everything in rainbow colors like Skittles. Okay, catch the rainbow. All right, so this is what I mean by rainbow colors. Okay, all these beautiful colors on the sides here, if y'all notice that. Okay, so this right here is chapter 11. Chapter 11 says that it's dealing with the digestive system. Do y'all see that? The digestive system. That's what it means. And on the tab here, it has chapter 11. Okay. If you read your coding guidelines, the front of your book from beginning to end, like I used to teach kindergarten, from beginning to end, you show the illustration, the color. That's why everything starts off foundational in learning, so that when you become an adult, you can appreciate all of everything pulled together. You read everything from page to page, and then you can say, oh, this makes sense. I know where everything is. Sometimes we as adult learners, we can be kind of short-spanned in our learning, and we want to just get right to it. But you'll miss out on key details if you don't go page by page. Bless your heart. Bless your heart. He's tired, bless his heart. So you have to do that, okay? All right, so we're going to look at the digestive system, and we're going to talk about it in the step-by-step book in chapter 6. So I have 2018. Is it chapter 6 in your book as well, Chris? Okay, fantastic. All right. Now, let's look at this. Now, this is talking about hemorrhaging. Okay, so throughout the chapter and other chapters, you must pay close attention to additional chapters to be assigned for the use of combination codes, and carefully read the excludes, includes notes, and other instructions. Also important in this chapter is the presence of hemorrhage. Hemorrhage means bleeding and or perforation associated with a disease. Code K92.2, and we're going to show you how to look that up. 92.2 is the gastrointestinal hemorrhage unspecified, is not assigned when codes for specific site-specific bleeding exist. Assign this code only when the physician states gastric hemorrhage or intestinal hemorrhage, and etc., and no further is specified. Also, because the physician may not always indicate the presence of hemorrhage, the coder must review the record and then clarify the documentation with the physician before the code assignment. There are also combination codes to report conditions of hemorrhage. Okay, so let's look in the book, chapter 11, Disease of the Digestive System, and let's look at K92.2 in the ICD-10 book. So let's show you what that looks like. Okay, so we have, show you on the screen here. Okay, so this is K0, K00.0, K00.1. So we're going to keep looking. So instead of K0, we're going to go K2, K3, 4, 5, K6, K9, and it says K92. Okay, so K92.2, okay? Now, this is not how we normally look up our codes. This is based on the teaching of the book. There is a proper way of how you define your codes. You have to find your codes alphabetically. Depending on gastric hemorrhage, then once you find it alphabetically and it leads you to the code K92.2, then you verify it in the tabular list and you follow the coding symbols and guidelines if it's asking for a 4th digit, 5th digit, 6th digit, or extra digits behind it. Okay, so here we find K92.2. Here it is. right there. Can you see it? I think I hit my finger on it. Okay, so K92.2 right there. Okay, very good. So this is just going along with the reading. So what they say as far as combination codes are extra codes to help describe what the main code is referring to. Okay, so you may have a gastric hemorrhage also in the intestines, okay, and you may also have some other codes that may help give adjective to the main reason of why that patient is being seen. Okay, so that's what that means by combination codes. Okay, you have to read your exclusions and your inclusions. And I'm going to talk another tape about the coding rules and stuff and how to follow all of that. So you'll know, according to the coding guidelines, what you can add to use and what you cannot use. Okay, so now looking at this example, it says diagnosis is for diverticulosis of the colon with preparation and abscess of hemorrhage. Now, diverticulosis, intestines, it gives a code here. Large, it gives, another code here. So it's giving an example of how it would look in the coding book. Now, for hemorrhage to be reported, there does not have to be an active bleeding. However, there must be documentation in the medical record to support the fact that the active bleeding has occurred, and the physician must identify the source of bleeding for combination code to be assigned. It is also important to verify the code assignment tabular. It is only when you reference the tabular that you know that it includes or excludes the code. So again, when your doctor, and I say this to billers and coders all the time, in SOAP notes, you have subjective, objective, assessment, and plan. Okay. Your lifeline as a biller and coder in a doctor's office. In a doctor's office, the documentation in the medical records is different from the documentation in the hospital. In a doctor's office, your lifeline is the assessment. That's where the doctor does his review of systems. That's where he writes how much time he spent with the patient. He writes his diagnosis or his prognosis, depending on if he's doing an x-ray or lab. And he's also writing some other things that are pertinent to the details of why that patient is being seen. You have to make sure as a coder that all of the documentation is there to support what you're getting ready to code, because you can be audited at any time. Okay. And if there's no documentation there, and CMS sends somebody, or HEDIS sends somebody, or Aetna or United Health sends somebody to audit your records, and if the documentation is not intact to support that diagnosis code and or those procedure codes, you might end up having to pay some money back. Heads up. Heads up. Okay, so let's look at exercise 6.1. Okay, so this is disease of the digestive system. And so assign ICD-10 codes to the following. So we're going to come back to the board here, and I'm going to write, this says appendicitis with generalized peritonitis. Okay, so appendicitis, read that out to me, Natasha. Appendicitis, let's go with number one. Number one, APPEN, how you spell that? D-I-C-I-T-I-S with generalized
peritonitis.
Generalized, how you spell that?
P-E-R-I-T-O-N-I-T.
T-O-I?
No, T-O-N.
T-O-N-I-T-I-S. Okay, very good. So we need to find the ICD-10 code. Okay, we need to find the ICD-10 code. Okay, so what is the first rule of thumb when we're looking for codes, what is the first rule of thumb? I think Ms. Harper has said that once before. When we go to looking for codes, we have to, what is the first thing that we look for in the ICD-10 book? What is the first place we go to? Volume 2. Volume 2. So we have to go to Volume 2. What's another name for Volume 2? The alphabetic list. The alphabetic list. Okay. All right. So we have to look in the alphabetic list. So let's look for appendicitis. So go ahead and utilize that ICD-10 book and go in the A section, which is that lovely gray section in front of the book. Okay. And which is called alphabetic. Now, after we find that, then we need to do what?
Verify.
Verify. Verify. And then once we verify, we have to go to what? Volume 1. Okay? And once we look in volume 1, let's look for the code. Once we look for the code, we have to see, is it third digit? Is it asking for a fourth digit? Is it asking for a fifth digit, sixth digit, or an anchor? I'm going to call it an anchor. I can't get my terminology off the top of my head. But the X, there you go.
K35.
K35.2, okay? So she says K35.2. Did you verify that?
No.
Okay, so she's going to verify that. K35.2. What did you say, Chris? K35.3. Okay. K35.3. Okay, so you're being challenged, Tasha. You're being challenged.
K35 is 0.2.
Generalized.
Generalized. Okay. All right. So it is that. So do you see now the importance of why it is that we have to verify? Sometimes it could be off 1 or 2 digits, and that's okay. That is very okay, as long as it's within the specific realm of what you're talking about. 1 digit is very okay. Now, let me say this for all these business analytics, those that like to analyze the EOBs and things of that nature in the doctor's office, okay? When you have an EOB to come back to you from an insurance company, and if they say, we're pending for more information because you have sent us a combination code, or you sent us a code of K35.3. What does K35.3 say?
It says, hello, how y'all doing? Did y'all have a good weekend?
Oh, thank you, Mr. Jackson. We had a wonderful
Did y'all have
time.
a good vacation?
It was good. It was very good. Thank you, Mr.
Yeah, so
Jackson.
you got a whole class now.
Yeah, I got a whole
They all came
class.
at one time.
That summer break made a big difference. It made a big difference. Made a big difference.
One is localized.
Oh, one is localized, and this is generalized. Okay, did y'all catch that in the YouTube audience? One is localized, and one is generalized. Now, let's go back to what it asks for right here. It's generalized. Okay, so it says, what is this? Appendicitis with generalized peritonitis. That key word up here, generalized, is your determining factor of how you specify the code that you're looking for. However, if you make a mistake and use the one that's local instead of generalized, it's okay. But if it gets pended, or if it just doesn't get paid, and you look back over and you analyze, that's where the brainstorming come in. That's where your mind goes like, Dun-dun-dun-dun-dun, the Inspector Gadget. Okay, so if y'all like to do Inspector Gadget type stuff, then you're gonna say, well, let me double check the. Well, why did I use K35 instead of K35.2? Let me correct that. Okay, so here's the steps how you can correct that to get your money, right? You're gonna correct it. You're gonna write a nice little letter. We're gonna practice writing letters in here. Do y'all know how to do that? Anybody know how to type pretty little letters? We're gonna practice typing pretty little letters in here. Okay, pretty little letters, pretty little letters. Okay, so we're gonna practice typing pretty little letters, and you're gonna write to insurance. Let's just say Aetna, Cigna, Blue Cross Blue Shield, whomever. And you're gonna say, dear correspondence team, or claims examiner, or claims manager, or claims supervisor, whomever you need to address it to, or dear customer service. And they're gonna make sure it gets to the right person. You can even email it. Make sure it's encrypted safely, okay? Because again, it's about safety and HIPAA. Okay, now, once you get it there, you're gonna say, patient John Doe for data service, blah, blah, blah. We gave a diagnosis of K35.3. It should have been K35.2. I understand that you did not pay this claim, or I understand that you were pending for information for this claim. I'm sending you copies of the SOAP notes for this particular data service. And I also need to see if you all can correct this in your system and possibly pay us for the K35.2 instead of the K35.3. Thank you so much, claims manager Tasha Murray, or Chris Mackey, or Brenda Rodriguez, whomever, Tara Harper, whatever. And then within 14 or so business days, I didn't say calendar, I said business days. Folks like to go home on the weekend, you understand? So 14 business days, then you should get some sort of response. Or you need to call them. That's where you need to keep a tickler file. The tickler file tells you how to follow up periodically, week by week or bi-weekly, of your work to keep track. So you know how to know all the money that you need to bring in for that end of the month meeting. Because the doctors need to know, where's their money? Where's my money? Okay? All right. Now, very good, class. Y'all find that one. Okay. Tasha, give me the next code.
Gastrointestinal.
Gastrointestinal. Did I spell this right?
I-N.
I-N? Okay. Intestinal, A-L. Okay. What else?
Bleeding.
Bleeding.
Due to.
Okay. Bleeding due to
Acute. Duodenal.
Duo, D-U-O.
Mm-hmm. D-E-N-A-L.
D-U-D-E-N-A-L.
Ulcer.
Ulcer. Okay. Now, hold on just a minute, Dr. Z.
No.
Okay. No, he said no. Okay. YouTube, he said no. I'm so sorry. I'm going to have to click you off in a minute. Okay. Now, due to, we're going to come back to that. Okay. So I'm going to have to put you on hold, YouTube, and I'll be right back. Don't you go nowhere. Don't you go nowhere.
I know my 5 minutes between